Jakob.
Servus.
Good to have you here. Maybe just tell us why you're here.
I'm here in Graz for the 10-year anniversary of Blockhaus.
When was the last time you were in Blockhaus?
That's a good question. I'm not even sure when the last time was. Must be a couple of years ago, actually.
You had like several years of preparation, which culminated this summer. How do you feel right now?
Right now I'm still a bit powered out from the games because I was fighting or still fighting with some slight injury that basically started after the games. I rested like for a week after the Olympic Games, and resting feels like it's not good for my body. Yeah, I mean, overall I'm obviously really happy how the games went, and yeah, I was also kind of relieved once it was over. Not that I didn't enjoy it. I loved being at the games, and it was such an amazing experience again. But still, it was obviously mentally pretty difficult, and it's in your head for a very long time. You just train so hard for like basically one of or maybe the biggest event of your life. Like having this big goal really sets free a lot of energy and makes you train harder than ever. But at the same time, it's also quite difficult to handle mentally and physically. So once it's over, it's also some kind of a relief. And it was nice to have like a few weeks not thinking about climbing or competitions. I definitely think it was a very positive thing, and it also helps our sport to grow even more. I mean, fact is, the Olympic Games are like it's the biggest sports event in the world. It gets a lot of attention, and it's still, I feel like for me, it's a great thought that like there is so many kids and people out there that have never really got into contact with climbing or ever heard about climbing, and maybe see it for the first time because of the Olympic Games and actually get an interest in this sport. Because as someone who loves doing this sport, it still makes me happy if there is more and more people finding joy in the thing that I love doing the most.
Where does it deviate the most from your idea of what the sport should be?
I mean, I think one thing or one big challenge for our sport is definitely that climbing has and is still growing so much right now. It's an amazing sport, and I feel like more and more people realize it, and especially like gym climbing feels like it's just exploding over the last years. Like there is more and more bouldering gyms and gyms overall built in bigger cities, and that's also why there's more and more climbers. And I think if all those climbers would also climb outside, that would be a huge challenge because a lot of them don't really know all the rules, how you're supposed to climb outside, how you're supposed to treat nature, like especially if you're like growing up in a city and you're like starting climbing in a climbing gym. It's something you really need to learn, how you actually have to behave yourself basically once you're climbing outside on the rocks. I think that's will definitely be one of the challenges that we have to face once our sport is growing even more, and more of those people that start climbing in a gym also climbing outside.
Do you have a solution for this? Where should we like maybe try to teach or inform new people? Is it a responsibility of the gyms maybe?
That's a difficult question. I think like everyone is kind of responsible for it, like us athletes that have a loud voice or have big social media channels, and climbing gyms, people that hold courses or stuff like this. But overall, it's just good if rules and those things are communicated in a better way.
Yeah, we were talking about like developments in the sport. What do you think? What opportunities do athletes have to influence this development?
It's pretty difficult to influence as an athlete, I think, because also a lot of those decisions are very subjective. But still, there's like a bunch of things that are just clear sometimes when it's about route setting, about competitions, how they're organized, like whether some of them could be better organized, could have better ISOs, or could route setting was especially bad or particularly bad. And I'm not talking about styles, because that's which is really subjective, but sometimes the difficulty of boulders, for example, or routes is completely off. It's sometimes annoying to see if there's like route setters or even organizing committees that have done a really bad job over more years and they get over and over like the same chance, although they haven't done a very good job. And yeah, in general, I mean, I'm also part of the athletes commission, so there we also try to tell the IFSC all the problems that us athletes have within the competition scene, or things that we think should be improved. And I think there is still, a lot room for improvement within the IFSC and competitions, but we're still on a good way and doing well.
When you hear the commentating and the comps talking about the styles you like, the styles you don't like, maybe, are you content with this new school bouldering in the competitions? Or if you could decide, would you change this, like the style of the boulders completely?
Yeah, I mean, that's a difficult question. That's what I'm saying. Like, that's very subjective, what kind of boulders you like in competitions. But I definitely think sometimes and some competitions have way too much crazy stuff. Like whenever we talk about new school and old school, I think it's kind of not the right term. I know people use it and I do use it, but I don't think it's the right term, because new school is whatever route setters decide new school is, and old school could be new school. It's more about like the holds which are shaped. Like a lot of the route setters are also shapers. So I feel like the new holds that are produced often determine what kind of style is set at World Cups. And obviously volumes get bigger and bigger. Holds have gotten way bigger over like the last 10 years. And that's also why bouldering has changed so dramatically. And there is so much crazy dyno stuff. And yeah, I do feel like there is often comps where finger power is not important at all, and that's definitely a deficit, I think. I definitely think some things that are just very important, or maybe even the most important thing in rock climbing, should at least have a place in competitions. I'm talking about steep walls and finger power boulders and holds and body tension and stuff like that. And if we have comps where there's 4 boulders which are either a slab or a dyno or some weird coordination, I feel like we're doing something wrong, because I do think, or I would love to see climbing or also bouldering in competitions always at least be a sibling of rock climbing and not a completely different sport.
But do you think then that maybe we need 2 bouldering formats, like different, that there are different sports?
I don't necessarily think so, no. I don't know. I mean, that could be a parkour discipline, but I'm not sure. The thing about this discipline, or about these crazy boulders, is also that obviously there's people that are better at it than others, but still they have like a lot of randomness in them. And I think one problem about bouldering nowadays is also that it can be not as cool to follow sometimes as like lead or even other sports, because it feels very random. Like if you have a winner of a World Cup, like let's say Sota Amagasa winning the World Cup in Innsbruck, and then in the next World Cup he's not even in semifinals, it's strange. Like you have so much fluctuation within the competitors. You have like, there's only like a tiny amount of athletes that consistently make it to a final. And you really lose out on stars, on big names. Like if you think about tennis, what would tennis would have been without Djokovic, Federer, and Nadal? And same goes for like lead climbing, like Adam, myself, Alex, and now the newcomers like Toby and Sorato. And then if you in bouldering you have like 6 different athletes every single final, it's not as exciting. I'm not saying it's exactly this way right now, because like somewhere like Sorato, who is so good at everything, does make it consistently, but there's not really a lot of athletes that make it consistently. And doing it myself, I do feel like there's many bouldering rounds where you feel like there's quite a lot of randomness in it. There's things that you can't control as much, when like a boulder, for example, is mostly about just reading it right, and it's also about luck of getting the beta right sometimes. And that's definitely frustrating as an athlete. And I think it's also makes it less cool to watch sometimes if it's just always, it feels like it's kind of random who makes it to finals. And that's a problem of this crazy style sometimes, because I do think there is a place for like a slab problem or a technical boulder and a coordination boulder. But then there still needs to be like 2 or 3 boulders that are steep and actually, are more controlled, like where you have like always the same people performing because they are just the best climbers.
If we look 10 years back, or maybe even a bit more, we had something like that in bouldering with Kilian, no, who dominated. Did the style change, or was Kilian so strong, or how was he able to dominate so long?
I mean, Kilian was obviously very strong, but also, yeah, the style also changed dramatically. Yeah, there was like a few more climbers that were like were really consistent back then, like Dimitri Sharafutinov, for example, or. But yeah, I mean, Kilian was obviously one of the best who ever did it, especially in like bouldering competitions. But yeah, I think the field has changed, obviously. Like there's way more like strong people out there nowadays than back then. I mean, I also used to compete back then, and back then it was not so hard to make semifinals. I think that's like the biggest thing. Like maybe it was already hard back then to make finals, but semifinals was still kind of okayish. And nowadays, like if you just mess up qualification, you will be 50th. Even though you might, in another round, you have a chance to win. That's how close together the field is. And then also, yeah, the boulders feel a lot more random, mostly because they are so much harder to read often with all the volumes and stuff. So it's much easier to make mistakes within like 5 minutes.
And I guess Janja is just like an exception.
I mean, yeah, Janja is just so much better than the others that it really, yeah, doesn't matter what she does. I feel like she's just such a generational talent. It's crazy.
So yeah, what do you think? Where is our sport headed in the next years?
It's hard to say where our sport is heading. I think there's also always like some distinctions to be made, like competition climbing, rock climbing, and then maybe also hobby climbing or gym climbing as a hobby, because I think that's the thing that has grown by far the most over the last years. And competition climbing still has way more space to grow, especially because I feel like there is so many more climbers in the world right now, but still so many of them are not really into competition climbing or don't even know so much about it, that there's still so much possibility to grow even without our scene, and make the sport interesting to watch for everyone who loves climbing, and yeah, have more good competitions. I think it also depends obviously on the decision which disciplines are going to be Olympic for the next cycle. That's also a big decision to be made for our sport and has a big weight on it, how our sport is developing over the next 4 years. Because I think right now the World Cup is really suffering underneath like the decisions that were made or had to be made to be Olympic, that we are like having disciplines at the Olympic Games, like the combined discipline, that's not actually at the World Cups. And then the World Cups don't play a role in the qualification for the Olympic Games. And a lot of the best athletes mostly care about World Championships and Olympic Games and qualification for Olympic Games, and don't even do the World Cup anymore. So that kind of sucks, and I think it's something IFSC really has to solve, and obviously would also be kind of solved if we get all disciplines to the games, which I really hope. But yeah, in rock climbing, I feel like I think there's potential for 9C plus or even 9A plus boulders, which we will probably get in the next few years. So I'm really excited what's going to happen. But I think our sport is still developing a lot. After all, it's still a young sport.
What do you do the next weeks or month? What's your winter going to look like?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was clear that I'm going to climb a lot in the gym and train until the Olympics, try to be in my best shape possible. But then after the Olympics, I'm not going to do any more comps this year, and I'm just going to climb outside. And I was really looking forward to it. And yeah, so now I already did like a 3-week trip to Mallorca, where I climbed some amazing lines over the Mediterranean Sea, deep water soloing, with a lot of videos coming out soon on my YouTube channel. And my next big goal of the year is to try DNA, one of the 3 9Cs in Verdun in France, from first ascended by Sepp Bouin, or Bouin, sorry. And yeah, I'm gonna go there in like 10 days for a 2-week trip, and then probably do another trip, because that would be the big goal to yeah, finally not just do the first ascent, but also repeat a 9C route.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Jakob, for doing
Thank
this.
you.
Thanks, it was great having you.
Thank you.